So many people have asked me recently about scaling. Specifically, should I be doing less, safe, disciplined agile delivery? Which of these frameworks is going to work best for me and my organization? Which one's going to help the most? And I almost feel like telling them none of them. And I don't mean that in a negative way. Let me explain. What I found is that many organizations aren't necessarily ready to scale when they start their scaling mission. So when they say, hey, we're going to start scaling, they're just not ready to do it yet. So the question is, how do I know I'm ready to scale? Or maybe even better yet, what are some tips or some things that I can do to help scale without incorporating all the components of an overly complicated framework? Is it possible to scale without doing everything? Can you do components of SAFe without doing SAFe? Well, let's go through 7 tips. So I have 7 tips of things that you can do to help you get to the point where you are in the zone, if you will, where you are just ready to scale. So let's start with number one on my list. Number one on my list is going to be continual improvement. Now, you might be wondering, how is this different than continuous improvement? Continuous is like ever flowing, like a river. It just keeps going and going and going. Continual means that you're making an effort to go in one direction, but that you realize that there's going to be times where you're not going to be flowing as fast or as slow. There's going to be times where you stop and reflect and make course correction. But you should always be aiming towards continual improvement as a team. If each team is focused on continual improvement, that's going to help you overall when it comes time to scale, because you're going to have opportunities to have checkpoints to see where everybody is. That just makes sense. All right, let's go to number 2. Number 2 is probably my favorite of the entire list, and that is limiting work in progress. If you've ever been to one of my AgileDad workshops before, you know I put heavy emphasis on limiting WIP. One of the things that makes or breaks people, it helps you come in with faster time to market, lower cost, higher quality, higher customer satisfaction. I mean, I can go down the list with you. You still wind up delivering the same exact number of products or services, or the same number of features if you're doing it at the team level, as you would have if you hadn't limited WIP. But the difference is you're going to get all these additional benefits. So one of the things about learning to scale is learning how to apply Little's Law. Stop trying to do everything all at once and start focusing on one thing at a time and knock it out. Get it done. Just start something, finish something. Stop starting new things and start finishing the things that you've begun. Let's go to number 3. Number 3 is interesting. I like to call this the science fair or single demo. And what I mean by this is, if you put yourself into the shoes of a stakeholder, if you put yourself into the shoes of someone who is interested in all aspects of a large product, they don't have time to sit in 16 demos where each different group has prepared a small, let's take a look at my little piece, right? It's almost better to use more of a science fair approach where you have one large demo that incorporates the 10 or 12 or whatever it is most popular features that everyone will want to see. But it doesn't need to be each group. While I'd love to have time to give each individual person a chance to demo every single thing that they built, it just doesn't make sense, right? In the grand scheme of things, if we're trying to scale back on meetings or we're trying to scale to a larger picture, you just can't, it just becomes undoable to have the stakeholders feel like they're required to be in every single one of those meetings. So let's scale back and let's do more of a science fair approach where everybody does their own demo of their features internally with their teams and their product owners, and we select the highest level, most urgent things, or the things that the things that the stakeholders care the most about, and do a demo for those. But we'll record all of the demo of the features, and if someone says, "Hey, I want to know how this works," you could have a short recording, a Loom recording that shows how those features work. So I think it's just a combination of things, but stick to one review. Okay, let's go to number 4. Number 4 is synchronizing sprints. Now, this is something that a lot of people, they give me kickback on. But what I mean by this is you shouldn't have some groups doing 1 week, 2 week, 3 week, 4 week, and just have it all over the place. At least at minimum, you want to make sure that the numbers are divisible. So you shouldn't have some groups doing 2 and some groups doing 3, because then they only match on the 6 and the 12. It just makes things hard. So what I'm trying to say is small iterations are better, and you want to make sure you're focused on, sticking with. Most organizations do 2-week sprints successfully, and they're fine. I would rather you scale back the number of items in a sprint and get it done in 2 weeks. than constantly being forced to carry things over from one sprint to another. The key here is that carrying things over or splitting items should be a negative thing. It shouldn't be something that you do every sprint. It should be rare. It should be something that you're not doing all the time. And it should be something that's treated very delicately. Your goal should be to synchronize your sprints and synchronize your work to the sprint so that you can complete things in 1 or 2 weeks and get those things done. All right, we're getting close to the bottom of the list. This one is, I don't want to say controversial, but it's something that's so easy to understand but so hard to do. There should be a single product backlog with a clear product vision and strategy. Now, people argue with me all the time, but there's multiple product owners. How can the teams focus on? Here's the deal. If you're trying to scale, you need to have one product owner with a giant backlog of everything that they think they need. And you need to have that thing prioritized, broken down. They need to involve a business analyst, functional analyst, technical analyst. They need to involve people who can help them make good decisions about the objective stack ranking of that backlog so that we're delivering features that give the highest value, right? Highest benefit. Either, and when I say value, I got to be careful because that could be customer value, value to the end consumer. It could be business value, strategic value, helping us move in a different direction. Or it could be technical value, helping us with architecture, infrastructure, so we don't constantly have to rebuild things. But if you have one single backlog that all the teams swarm to, so one backlog with everybody swarming to it, that's going to help you really gain leverage. And that's going to help you understand that you're building the right things for the right people. And the team doesn't feel overwhelmed with the things that are coming. Now, you're probably asking yourself, what about all the other product owners? What should they be doing? Well, here's a newsflash. If one product owner for this quarter is having all their things worked on, the next one in queue, okay, your product's coming up next. We're going to address yours, so you better be refining that backlog, getting ready to go. They should be spending time this quarter preparing their backlog so it's easily consumable by the team so that when the team does get to it the next quarter, they're able to address all the things that are there. So it's one of those things where you might have a product owner with downtime, quote unquote, where nothing's being worked on. But in order for them to be prepared for the next quarter, they need to make sure that their backlog is in good condition, right? And that's how it should be. So that way we rotate through each backlog. That way each product owner has breathing room and then high stress period where the stuff's being done. Breathing room, high stress period. But it should be one aligned backlog with one clear goal. That's kind of easy, yes? Okay, let's go to number 6. You want to align on outcomes, not outputs. This is something that a lot of organizations still struggle with. I hear all the time, well, how do we get our teams to produce more work? How do we get them to increase their velocity? How do we get them to do more story points? And the answer is you don't, right? If you want to focus on things that are outcome driven, whether it's evidence-based management or objectives and key results, OKRs, you want to make sure that you're focused on outcome-oriented goals, not output-oriented goals. So you want to make sure that teams and organizations understand that outcome trumps output every single time, every time. So if we can align on outcomes and focus on outcomes, it's going to help us it's going to help us both short-term and long-term thinking. Short-term, it's going to help us focus on what's going to have the greatest impact, which is important. But long-term, it's going to help us by understanding what we should say no to. And saying no to something means you're saying yes to something else. If you just say yes to everything, you're going to wind up saying no to a lot of things. Food for thought. All right, then coming in at number 7, you want to make sure your teams feel like and can operate in a truly autonomous fashion, meaning that they can create an incremental working product without a bunch of external interference, that they can move forward and that they can work on things, and that what they deliver is adding value. If you can get out of this mess that scaling often creates, especially some of the real rigid frameworks, if you can get out of that mess of thinking that, oh, everything needs to be coordinated a certain way and allow the teams to have true autonomy, this should be a really basic principle that just makes sense. Let the team self-organize, let them focus on the work that needs to be done, prevent interruptions, reduce the amount of technical debt that they have, and you're going to find that these teams are highly effective. Well, I hope that you enjoyed this episode. That's going to do it for today. If you have something you want us to discuss, learn more at AgileDad.com. We would love to hear from you. And as always, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care. Bye now.